Hey, James here. Now in this video we're going to be talking about 10 things that every radio DJ or presenter says. Some of these things are fine and some can kind of get a little bit annoying. So really the idea of this video is to kind of give you some ideas and maybe make you a little bit more aware of some of the stuff you're saying on air. Is it too repetitive? Is it interesting? Is it entirely necessary? Let's find out. Okay, so welcome to this video. For those of you who are new here, my name's James Mulvaney. I'm founder of Radio.co, Podcast.co and Matchmaker.fm, all doing really cool things in the audio and broadcasting spaces. In today's video, I want to talk about radio. I want to talk about things that quite often radio presenters will say each time they do their shows. Or even if you're recording a podcast or if you're recording a video like this one and you want to create unique and engaging content, we can learn a lot by listening to other people. We can learn a lot by listening to radio presenters, TV presenters, so on and so forth. So here are 10 things that every DJ says on air all the time. So we're going to keep this quite light-hearted today, and we're going to put in some funny clips in between all this stuff as well for your enjoyment. And thanks to all of the creators who've kind of created these. Some of these are hilarious and I'm sure you're going to enjoy them. Let's dive in. So in at number 10, name dropping like there's no tomorrow. When I'm saying that, I'm talking about name dropping the radio station or name dropping yourself as a presenter. So you might be saying, hey, I'm James and you're listening to me here on Radio.co FM or whatever, right? That's fine. But here's the caveat. I was listening to an industry expert talking about this very recently, and it's so true. If you are just coming out of a song and you're playing a sweep or a jingle or an ID or whatever it might be, and it says either the station's name or your name, don't repeat it. Don't then say the station name and your name, because the sweep or the jingle, whatever it is you've just played, has just identified you, identified the station. So be very conscious that if you're introducing yourself after a song, that you've not already just been introduced in a jingle or a sweeper just before, because that can kind of become a little bit annoying. But certainly every single DJ loves to talk about themselves, and they certainly want you to know who they are when you're tuned into them. In at number 9, getting the last word in edgeways. Quite often you'll see this when you have a zoo-style breakfast show where the main host, who will be the kind of leader of the pack, if you like, they will be the one who wants to say the last thing. And sometimes you get caught up in arguments on air, or you'll get caught up in friendly banter, whatever you might call it. There's certainly always times when as a radio DJ you want to get the last word in, which is fine. We've all got egos, right? And we're all on the radio for a reason.
Right, that is your lot from me, but Rob Howard, he is on the way. Mate, have a good one.
No, I will. I got all the big tunes you need for Sunday, Niall.
Can't wait.
And how about some tickets too? You could win tickets to see Billie Eilish.
Loads going on in his show. Rob, mate, have a good one.
And of course, I want to hear from you, 83958.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, drop him a text.
We're talking about what is the weirdest thing you've done in lockdown?
So many things. Have a great show, mate.
I'll tell you mine, actually, Niall. I'll tell you.
Black leather glove, no sequin. Buckles on the jacket, it's elite.
Number 8, accidentally broadcasting dead air. There's so many times I've been listening to the radio and, the DJ will finish playing a song and then they will realise maybe that they're expecting the automation to go on to something else. So they were expecting a sweep or they're expecting another track to automatically come in and they haven't tied them together, they haven't hooked it all up. The song finishes and suddenly there's always that awkward moment of dead air. Really, the lesson to learn from this is make sure you know exactly when the songs are finishing. Don't take your eye off the ball, especially when you're broadcasting live. Really important that you know exactly what's going on. You're keeping your eyes on that monitor. You're keeping your eyes on the timestamps and what is left on a track. Because dead air is one of the cardinal sins of radio broadcasters. But it still happens. I still hear it even on national, global radio stations. You can still get that thing where sometimes songs finish or just come out of an ad break and then there's like a little pause. Make sure you're avoiding that at all costs. Number 7, not what you say, but how you say it. Now, when I say this, I mean different tones, different styles will suit different radio stations. There's a really cool clip I'm about to play now which can show you how one person can sound completely different depending on the style. So if you're broadcasting to, say, a young crowd, you're playing high energy electronic music, you will probably be speaking very different to if you're producing political talk content, and likewise CHR or AAC kind of music will be different in your presentation style. So you need to adapt as a presenter sometimes depending on your audience. You don't want to be speaking at 100 miles an hour if you're doing something really serious. And likewise, if you're playing upbeat music, you don't want to be too slow and too calm and too chilled. So getting that balance right is really, really crucial depending on the content that you're producing.
What an absolute tune that is. That's Nathan Dorr and Little Mix. I got text here from Amy. She said she's been making pancakes all morning and she's got pancake mix all over the kitchen. How mental. Let me know how you're doing on Pancake Day. The Baby. WAP on Broadway. What absolute tune that is. We're going to be going till 12 o'clock.
Number 6, becoming the speaking clock. I think one of the days when people really rely on the radio to learn what time it is, I think certainly maybe when people are getting ready, their morning routine, it's good on breakfast radio to remind people what the time is. Do you need to get out of bed yet? You know, have you got to set off for the morning commute? Is it time to take the kids to school? Whatever it might be. Sometimes breakfast radio, I think, is crucial in kind of spelling out what the time is. However, throughout most of the day now, people have got clocks in front of them, whether that be on their wrist, on their phone, on the computer if they're sat at work, or even, you know, in the car. Most cars have got clocks in these days. So I don't think you need to always be telling the time. Can help now and then, and of course doing a time check when the news comes on is always kind of like the standard thing to do. However, don't be constantly reminding people of the time. I don't think it's really necessary in this day and age. Number 5, glossing over mistakes. We've all stumbled our words. Jesus, even just recording this video, I've managed to mess up my words a few times. However, the main thing... See, I've just done it now. The main thing to do, if you're making mistakes, and we'll leave this in for editing purposes, is to be professional, okay? Don't get too caught up on it, and just remember that the audience probably won't even notice unless you alert them to it. They're not going to notice if you've stumbled your words. So your job as a host or a DJ or presenter is to make sure that you keep things moving forward smoothly. And, you know, if you have any mistakes, just don't stress too much about them. Just move on, keep things professional, keep things moving in the right direction. In at number 4, we've got reading out funny messages by accident, aka listener pranks. This is absolutely fantastic, and there's been so many great examples of this recently, where listeners have been texting in to shows with funny things that perhaps the radio DJ isn't always aware of. You know the old kind of Homer Simpson, Bart Simpson thing where they used to do the pranks to Moe's Bar?
Yes, I'm looking for a friend of mine. Last name Jazz, first name Hugh.
Hold on, I'll check. Hugh Jazz! No, somebody check the men's room for a Hugh Jazz!
Well, people do this on the radio too, so be wary if you're reading out messages that they're not listeners trying to prank you. Here's a really funny example.
Okay, let's get to our first dedication. Dear Chris, please say a big hello to Connie Lingus, who's 69 on Tuesday. She'll be enjoying my meat and 2 veg on Sunday at 12, which are all the very best, and tell her I look forward to seeing her when she comes. Thanks ever so much, says Ivan R. Don.
Okay, in at number 3, having one-sided conversations. This is when the radio presenter asks the listener a question, but of course the listener's not always going to respond, well, unless they're texting or emailing or calling back. But ultimately, this is something every radio DJ does. It creates that kind of one-on-one bond with the listener, which I think is really important. So, for example, you might say, how's your weekend been, or how's your day going so far? But the most important thing is you are talking directly to the listener and talking to that one person as if it's that relationship between you and them, versus just saying, how's everyone doing, or how is everyone, or welcome to the show, you all, or whatever. But like, if you're actually talking directly to the listener, it creates that more intimate relationship on air, which is really, really important. I think that's why people like listening to radio. You know, a lot of people have said over the past 10 years or 20 or 30 years, you know, why is radio still around? Surely this industry is going to die out, and it hasn't. It's stuck here, and it's still strong, and it's still as powerful as the medium as it's ever been, which I think is really exciting. And I think that's because of the direct connection between the listener and the radio presenter. Number 2, when debates get out of hand. Quite often, radio shows will have call-ins. They'll have listeners who will, especially when it comes to talk radio, right? They'll have people who ring in and they will discuss certain topics. The late night talk shows are always the best. Sometimes they can get out of hand. So it's your job as the radio host to kind of rein it back in and keep things on topic. You don't want the listener saying anything they shouldn't be saying on air. You've got certain restrictions quite often to stick to in terms of what you can and can't broadcast. And of course, when it comes down to political stuff, it's often rife with people speaking their minds, sometimes with hilarious results. Check this out.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line. Hello, Colin.
Finally, I get to break my silence.
What do you mean, Colin?
Well, I'm not allowed to say anything, am I? If they don't let you speak, you must be doing something right. That's what Ringo Starr said, and he had a point.
Ringo Starr? When haven't you been allowed to speak?
Well, like forever?
Right, Colin, I'll be silent. The floor is yours.
Well, I've been so long being silent, so I'm not able to say what it is I'm not able to say, am I? And what I would have said, I said on your show yesterday. But my point is, I should be allowed to come on here and say nothing.
And you just have.
Well, that's my point. Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Okay, and finally, in at number 1, you know, when in doubt, you can always talk about the weather. This is funny because everyone talks about the weather, certainly here in the UK. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but it's certainly a good icebreaker. You know, how is the weather today? You could always do the weather forecast, or you can just discuss the weather. This is a really funny example from voiceover artist Darren Altman with his impression of DJs talking about the weather.
Hey, this is Dazza banging out all your favourite 80s hits. You know, I was looking out the studio window today, black clouds, rain. 5 minutes later, beautiful sunshine. Do you know I don't think the weather can make its mind up? You gotta speed it up.
Okay, so to finish up, I wanted to give you some quick fire DJ phrases. These are something that you can throw in to pretty much any link and it'll all sound pretty cool. Firstly, I want to hear from you. This is great because it's talking to the listener. As I mentioned earlier, you want to create that one-on-one bond. Secondly, up next, it's always good to finish a link talking about either what songs are coming up or what you're going to be talking about further down the line. Next up, we're live from. Now this is great if you're a local radio station and you want to show the community that you've got their back. Local radio is becoming more and more distant and centralised, which I think is a great shame. But this also opens up lots of opportunity for new local radio stations. So remind your community that you're coming from the heart of their centre, whether that be, you know, from a specific location or from a specific village or town or a city or whatever it might be. Or if you're doing an outside broadcast, remember to remind the listener where you're broadcasting from. And finally, have you heard the news? It's always a great topic of conversation to talk about the local news, talk about what's going on in your area, talk about new businesses that have opened, things that are happening in the day, current affairs, the type of stuff that people will want as kind of casual banter on in the background when they're listening to the radio. So thanks very much for watching this video. I really enjoyed putting this together, and I think some of the clips that we've showed are great. I mentioned we'll put some credits in the description of where we've sourced these from. If you have any comments or ideas of other stuff that DJs and radio presenters are always saying, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video. If you found it useful or fun, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, all of that great stuff. You know the drill, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now. What makes the difference between a successful radio station and a failed project? Well, after working with tens of thousands of broadcasters over the past 15 years and helping lots of people start their own radio stations, I see the same mistakes being made time and time again. So what I've done is I've put together a guide called the 5-Step Radio Startup Checklist, which really covers everything from concepting your radio station to marketing it. And this guide, I believe, will make the difference between you having a successful venture with longevity and creating something that doesn't quite hit the mark. Go and grab your copy now for free at jamesm.com/radio. Just enter your name and your email address and I'll send it over to you straight away. You're going to find it really useful. There's tons of information there which will help you with concepting and launching your brand and bringing it to market.